What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Who's awake here? Okay, like 3 people. Great. So I guess the first way I really want to start off about this is we're going to talk about transparency. And we're going to talk about the importance of transparency. When I talk about the importance of transparency, I'm really talking about it in the regards to business, whether it's done by a company that raised funds, by an ICO, or even by a quote-unquote influencer or things like that. But before we even get into that, who here has been scammed? Who here has lost money in following someone's call via a paid group or something like that before? So pretty much a large majority of the people here have had this happen to them. I think that if you've been scammed, you've been dumped on, things like that, it shows you where the state of the market is. It shows you where the state of the industry is. So a little bit before we get into all of this stuff, who am I? My name is Michael. Some people, if you follow me on Twitter, you know me as Nye. I started in crypto and blockchain. I bought my first Bitcoin like 2012, 2013. Didn't really take it seriously back then. Got really back into it in the middle of 2017 and instantly fell in love. First was all about making money, and then as soon as I started to learn more about the technology and really see what was going on in the industry, I got into it heavier in terms of traveling, in terms of meeting all of these amazing people here and all of that good stuff. So what does it mean to be transparent? And even before we get into what does it mean to be transparent, I want to talk a little bit about what goes beyond transparency. And beyond transparency, what we're really talking about, the issue that we're really discussing here is morality. Right, so there's a lot of people, or a lot of times we've seen throughout this industry and throughout the experiences with people raising funds, and specifically in the era of 2017, 2018 period, a lot of scams and money grabs happening. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't begin with transparency. It actually begins with morality. There's a lot of people that look at where they are. Yeah, take a good picture of me. They look at where they are and they say, or they look at where the industry is and they say, this is a potential for me to be okay as a human being in terms of my finances. And they don't look at how they are affecting other people, or maybe they do look at how they're affecting other people, and they cause pain to others. And this is a major issue with the world beyond cryptocurrency. We won't get into all of that. But what does it mean to be transparent? Well, the actual definition is it's easy to perceive or detect. To me, what it means is that you're open, you're honest, and you're communicative. You're able to share what's going on with you in a way that is going to impact your audience, impact the people that are listening to you, going to create trust with the people that are listening to you. And it's important. It's important whether you're building a business, whether you're building a brand, whether you're building all of these things. And what area am I speaking about here specifically? Well, specifically brand building and businesses. The whole industry and the whole technology was sort of based off transparency in the very beginning. That's why blockchain has attracted many people. It's the ability to eliminate the middleman, create more transparency in transactions, specifically with the banking things and like that. But we're not going to talk about the technology side of it. Right now, we're specifically going to talk about what it means to be transparent in a business. Why is lack of transparency a problem? Is there something going on over here? It's a little scratchy. All right. Test. All right, cool. Why is the lack of transparency a problem? Well, for companies, it's a major issue because doesn't allow the community to communicate well, or doesn't allow the company to communicate well with the community. As we can see right now, it wasn't a big issue back in 2017, 2018. A company could literally come up, they could write a white paper, and they could have zero technology behind their white paper, zero technology built, and they could say, we're raising $30, $40 million to build this product. When that occurred, there was obviously a lot of attention, a lot of hype, and a lot of excitement going on, so people didn't really care. We overlooked this idea of transparency, and it's caused a disconnect between the community and the projects at hand. And why has it done that? Well, because if someone says, hey, I want to raise $40 million for this company, I want to be able to build this product, but they don't have something to show for it, then they've pretty much they pretty much fueled off the hype cycle and created more hype and more hype and more hype. And anyways, what I'm getting at is that the lack of transparency is a problem for companies because it disconnects them from the community. It doesn't allow them to create an actual relationship with the community where the people in the community care about what they're doing beyond the price of the coin. It's a thing that we've seen right now. It's probably one of the main reasons why we don't have massive adoption of this technology, is because people don't care about the technology. They care about the price of the coin. And if a coin goes up in price or value, that's pretty much where the majority of the news and attention goes towards the community. It has nothing to do with the technology at this point. For the overall space, lack of transparency is a huge issue because we can't bring new people into the industry when everyone looks at it as a joke. Now, I'm not saying that everybody does, but there are a large majority of non-coiners or people that don't own cryptocurrency that if you talk to your Uber driver or your parents or people who are around you who don't know or aren't educated well about cryptocurrency, they say, "Oh, that's the thing where Bitcoin, the Ponzi scheme, that's the thing where there's a lot of scams going on." And this is a huge, huge issue. This is a huge, huge problem. And I believe that this problem really stems from a lack of transparency. When a company raises $40 million and immediately, for example, in 2017, 2018 period, literally puts on, raises $40, $50 million, then puts on their website penis and leaves and exit scams, it's a problem. This is not a good way to start an industry. This is not a good way to invite people into the industry. How is this limiting the process of adoption? That's exactly how it's limiting the progress of adoption, is the fact that if we can't bring new people in, and if new people don't feel comfortable in the industry, they don't want to learn more about it. It's killing education. And education is actually the key factor of what we need right now. Beyond everything else, beyond the building technology, we need people to become more educated. If they can become more educated, they can understand why Bitcoin's important. They can understand why smart contracts are revolutionary or have the potential to be revolutionary. They can see why we need decentralization. Most people, when you say decentralization, immediately shut off. But that's a conversation for a whole different talk. So what does good transparency look like for companies, for the overall space, things like that? I believe that good transparency looks like companies coming forward and sharing what's true. And what's true might not always be good or perfect or pretty. We've seen specific examples recently. If you're a trader, if you're on Twitter, or even if you're in the digital crypto community at all, Haven Protocol is an example, XHV. They came out recently and said that pretty much their whole code was owned by one developer, and when their whole code was owned by one developer who wasn't communicating with the rest of the team. And this is a huge, huge issue. And while they may have said it a little bit late or they did it in an inappropriate way, it's what the space needs more of. We need more transparency. We need more people sharing what is going on beyond the fundamentals of a project, what's going on beyond the technicals of a project, and what's going on, for example, with your finances, what's going on with treasury management, what's going on with the development of the project from a technical standpoint, but even beyond that, what's going on with the cohesion between your team members. I think that in the 2017, 2018 hype, a lot of people forgot about this. A lot of people looked at projects and they said, we can raise a lot of money, we can invest in these projects, and the two main factors that we need to be successful in doing this are A, technical analysis and beat fundamental analysis. And that was all great during a bull market. You know, you could do some TA on a chart. You could see that this person might partner with Nikon or T-Mobile or whatever it was, and the coin would pump 200%, 300%, and that was all fantastic. And we all got into this kind of euphoria mindset where people forgot what it was actually about to build a real company. And that's where we stand right now. Is we're in the middle of a bear market. We're starting to realize that we actually need to build companies that are sustainable, that are revenue-driven, profit-driven, that have the capacity to actually build something of actual value within the space. And to build a real company, it goes far beyond the partnerships that you have. It goes far beyond the technical analysis on the charts that you're drawing. It goes far beyond all of these things. And what it goes into is how well does the team work with one another? How well can you manage finances? And how well can you build a product that is going to succeed? And companies need to be able to share those things. As we can see, public companies on the NASDAQ, stock exchange, things like that, they require companies to be more transparent and more forthcoming. And that's why I'm really in favor of a few projects. VeChain does it really well. I'm not saying invest in them. I don't even know what the chart looks like. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is VeChain does it really well. They come out with quarterly reports. And every quarter they come out with a report that pretty much says where they've spent their money, where the development of their product is coming, and how they're moving forward in terms of progression. Really, really positive. Masari is another example. Shout out to Masari. They're pretty much their own project that invites other cryptocurrencies to become more transparent. They've created a system for cryptocurrencies and blockchain companies to come to them to say, we want to be more transparent. And Masari says, okay, well, you'll come through our process and you'll go through steps A, B, C, and D, and we will publish a specific report about your company, about where you are, the good, the bad, the in-between, all of that stuff. And we will blast it out to our network. And a couple people there have very, very large followings on social media, and they're promoting something that is good for the space, more and more transparency. How can we create more transparency? See, this is a question that I've really wrestled with, that I've really struggled with for a while, actually, is because there's no legal requirements for these companies to be transparent. In fact, the only way that we can inspire these companies to be more transparent is if we come together as a community. And that's the major problem with transparency, and the major problem with the industry as a whole right now is, while you may argue that regulation is bad, we don't want regulation, we don't want all of these things. Well, if we don't have some form of regulation, whether it's governmental regulation or self-regulation, we will continue to struggle with these issues of companies running away with lots of money. I mean, we're in 2019, and we still have companies like and exchanges like Cryptopia potentially running away with millions and millions of dollars. It's an issue. And the more and more I think about it, I mean, I don't have the answers of how we can create more transparency, but obviously little buzzwords like communication, honesty, integrity, action, all of that's great, but I think that we need to come together as a community to create a specific standard that we hold these companies to. And I think that's where the problem really lies. I think that's where we need to come together in terms of either we accept government regulation, and we just say, you know what, we can't do this on our own. We need heavy government regulation to come in and say this is okay and this is not okay. And maybe that's the way to do it. But I also think we have an opportunity to try a different way. In every other industry, we've stepped in, government has stepped in to create regulation that creates more transparency, that creates more honesty, that creates more clarity in terms of the way that these businesses interact with their customers and with their audiences. But I think that with cryptocurrency, with blockchain in general, we're doing something different here that may or may not require that. And I think that's where self-regulation comes in. It's an interesting topic. it's something that I want to discuss more. It's something that I don't know how it's going to work or how we would even congregate the community to decide something like this. But I think that if we create some form of self-regulation, then we're able to actually create a sustainable model where we say this company is in our self-regulation requirements and this company is not. And when the company is not, they get shunned or they get banned, or the community just pretty much says, no, we're not going to work like that. Like, we're not going to be okay with this level of communication. You need to communicate more. You need to be more transparent. You need to share what's going on with what you are doing, with who you are as a company, and with what you stand for. And yeah, that's really what I see is the largest issue. I think it's the thing that we struggle with the most in the space right now, and I think it's holding us back from actually being able to become a legitimate industry. You know, right now we've got a group of a few hundred people here at this event, and while we're all very, very inspired by this technology, while we're all very, very inspired by the potential of what it can do, we will not be legitimized by the large majority of people until we step in and we say this is okay with us and this is not okay with us. And we set a very, very clear line, a very clear boundary for what these companies are doing and how they need to be interacting with their communities and be interacting with the people that will eventually become their consumers. So, thank you. That's my thought process. And I have 4 minutes left if there are any questions. Got some questions over here.
Hello. I was in a one of those Telegram things that you were doing on the tokenomics channel prior to the event, where you had the crypto trader guy. What was his name? Trader Cobb from Australia. And I remember asking him a question about how much. And he's a crypto trader guy, obviously. By the
Yeah, I
name.
know Cobb.
So I asked him a question about how much emphasis he placed on fundamental analysis rather than technical analysis, and he said zero. And that surprised me, especially in the light of some of the things you were saying, that, you know, if some of the projects out there are offering transparency, then surely it's, you know, the right thing to go and do some of that fundamental analysis. What's your opinion on that?
So that's the difference between a trader mindset and an investor mindset, right? So a trader just looks at one specific tactic, and I know Cobb pretty well. He's pretty damn good at what he's done from what I've seen. But he's a trader, right? I'm more of an investor. I'm more looking at what is going to be sustainable, what is going to survive over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond that. And you can't be an investor without looking at every little capability. I'm looking at a larger time frame than he is. He's probably looking at a shorter time frame than I am. That would be my perspective on it.
Thanks for your talk, Michael. So I guess if transparency is a good thing, it should be demanded by investors, like through their revealed preferences. And yet I don't think that's what we saw. And so I guess I'm kind of curious to what degree it's investors' responsibility to demand it, or whether you think regulation should prevent bad investors or lazy investors.
Well, I think that comes down to are we going to take a government regulation standpoint, or are we going to take a self-regulation standpoint? And the problem that we've seen is that greed overran self-regulation. You know, greed over if we took a step back, got out of the euphoria mindset in 2017, and we looked and we would see, oh wow, look, we could take a step back, we see, oh, this is not good. You know, this is overall a lot of these are scams, a lot of these are money grabs, a lot of these people don't have anything that they're on. But the matter of fact is we as a community were caught in the euphoria mindset, and we were caught by greed, and it took us away from what was actually healthy for the industry. And I think that's where the the struggle lies between self-regulation and governmental regulation.
This has been a great presentation, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Really put a lot of thought into this and expended my thoughts on it. I'm very interested in what you think about potentially these venture capital focused blockchain companies like Wind Protocol, actually, and the ones that are doing the due diligence for, you know, not to, am I shilling things? I don't mean to be doing that at all. Well, they're doing, yeah, they put you through a due diligence screen. I've ran, you know, some of my own startups metrics through their stuff, and they said that they're going to be brokering so degree of transparency, and they could even create like a likelihood of, you know, the like maybe for example dependency on just a few people, individuals, which would be like a greater risk, and just it seems to me that this is the kind of thing that like a valuation process really lends itself well to showing the crowd, who would then reinforce, enforce accountability through the highly liquid, like the market.
Totally. I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction, but I also think that it's completely dependent upon what these companies decide to disclose. You know, even if you have people that are doing deep due diligence, we had a whole community around the Haven Protocol, the XHV. You know, the whole community loved it. People from who had been investing in cryptocurrency since 2012, 2013, all the way like to the beginners and the newcomers. Everyone thought that was a good project because it has a really good concept, it has a really good idea. But as much due diligence as you do, unless you are a part of the team or in close like friend or family relationship with the team and hearing one of the team members vent, you would never know what was going on with a situation like that. So again, I think transparency has to be created from the internal and presented to the external for it to be fully clear and open for the community. All right, everybody, I think that's it.
Michael Nye. All right.
Thank you so much, Michael.
There's never been a tulip mania that's done that.